Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. This is Glossy Philosophy. My name is Jansen Binman. Make sure that you are subscribed to this channel. Give this video a thumbs up because today we are doing our last book talk of the year, which is Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. Now, a lot of you have heard of Elizabeth Gilbert from Eat, Pray, Love and a bunch of other books that she's written, maybe even her article Pilgrims. But Big Magic, at least for anyone who is trying to live a creative life or have a creative outlook, is very important to read. It is kind of a kick in the teeth, and yet it is also done with love and admiration for all creatives out there, but also kind of a reality check of like, stop complaining, just do. So let's get into it a little bit. This whole book is basically how to be brave in your creative endeavors, whether that is photography, doing some kind of a YouTube channel, or writing, acting, singing, anything creative that you want to do either as your full-time job or as your side hustle or just as a hobby. This book is for you. Now, she says in the very beginning, if you are someone who has no struggles, if you are someone who believes in yourself 100%, no matter what you do, believes in your abilities, this book is not for you. I personally don't know any creative that lives that way or feels that way, so I feel like all of us, even the most seasoned veterans, can take something from this. Elizabeth Gilbert takes us on a very nice journey of how to get rid of the doubt, or at least how to start getting rid of the doubt, how to start getting rid of the fear, and really going for it, really living that creative life and taking off some shackles that we might put on, whether that is to have our art pay for our life or to be able to say, well, yes, I have this certain role on my resume, or I have this certain photograph in a certain magazine, and now I have made it. She basically says, like, you have never made it. You are constantly growing as a performer, as a creative. You are constantly looking for the next thing. You are constantly welcoming in those ideas, that inspiration. And if you are not ready to welcome in the inspiration, sometimes it will just pass you by. There's a really interesting story about this inspiration flowing in and out of people between her and Anne Patchett. And there was a moment when Elizabeth Gilbert had this idea for a book and she let it flow through her and she really started going after it. But then some crazy life things happened and she had to set it aside for a while. And she felt like the inspiration, that idea, that creative process left her completely. Come another year, Anne Patchett basically writes almost the exact same book, of course in her own style, in her own creative process, with different characters, but very similar. So Elizabeth Gilbert reminds us that if we are not open vessels basically to accept that inspiration, to accept that creativity, to accept that idea, it will leave us. And it has a right to, because it is something that needs to be said by someone, and hopefully that is by you. She also welcomes the fact that Anne Patchett has an excellent book. She is not mad at Anne Patchett, nor is she mad at anybody else who happens to have a very similar idea at the same time, and neither should you. It is just something that happens in this creative world. Ideas and inspiration kind of spin around all of us, and it feels more like who is open to that idea at that specific time, or even who needs to have that inspiration, that idea, and put it out into the world. And it might not be you, and that's okay, because another idea will come along and you will become that vessel for that idea. I also really love that she is very much against the starving artist, the anguishing artist. Sometimes, and I am guilty of this as well, when you are a creative person, you can get into your head and you can become really negative. You can become that victim. You can become like, woe is me, I'll never make it, I keep trying, it's not working, blah, 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 blah. So to that, she says, like, you are so lucky that you are able to create, that you are able to do that inspirational thing for others. Stop whining, stop complaining, welcome it, welcome the challenges, and keep going. Nothing is easy, and even when you've made it, it's still not easy. You have to keep performing. You have to keep putting out, otherwise what is the purpose of living this creative life? One of my favorite parts of the book is at the very beginning when she gives this great list that I think all of us who have ever tried to do something creative or put ourselves out there have said at least one, if not all of these things. And I will read a few of them to you. So she says, let me list for you some of the many ways in which you might be afraid to live a more creative life. You're afraid you have no talent. You're afraid you'll be rejected or criticized or ridiculed or misunderstood or, worst of all, ignored. You're afraid there's no market for your creativity and therefore no point in pursuing it. You're afraid somebody else already did it. You're afraid everybody else already did it. You're afraid somebody will steal your ideas, so it's safer to keep them hidden forever in the dark. You're afraid you won't be taken seriously. You're afraid your dreams are embarrassing. The list goes on, and I can vouch that I have said many of these things to myself, and I know a lot of my performing friends have also said that to themselves. And then at the very end, she says, tough, get over it. Everybody feels the same way. Now go out and do and create. Another one of my favorite ideas of this book is that oftentimes, if you're a creative person, you feel like you are never ready. The thing that you are working on, the project, the play, the book, the thing, is never quite perfect, and that is okay. It doesn't have to be perfect. You just have to come to that one point, to that stopping point, to be able to share, and you have to let it go. You have to let it take on a new life, either for the audience's sake, for the viewer's sake, for the reader's sake, and then it becomes somebody else's, and you have to be okay with that. A few months ago, I signed up for a small sword stage combat class, and at the very end, we have to do a certification where we perform a scene, and then we get some critiques, and then we have to do like a very quick master class. And one of the things that the master swordsman said before we even started was that he wasn't expecting perfection, and he wasn't expecting the end of our training. He just happened to be here on another day that we are continuing to practice, and it just happens to be on a stage, and he just happens to be giving us a grade for our practicing today. And I loved that frame of reference that we are never done. You can play the same role, you can do the same dance, you can take the same photograph a million times, and there's always something. If you are truly creative and truly looking for that inspiration and trying to better yourself, there's always something else that you can tweak, that you can play with, that you can try, that you can just continue to work on getting faster, getting more intentional with whatever it is that you're trying to create. There is never an ending. There is merely when you are ready. And sometimes that ending, if you are a performer on stage, is that last rehearsal, and then you have to be ready. And it is kind of nice to have those structural things put on yourself for when you have to stop and you have to be ready to start releasing the thing that you have been creating and imagining, and you have to put it out there into the world. And then it will continue to grow, and you will continue to tweak and fix and practice your scene or your swordsmanship or whatever, and it will continue to get better and better and better, or it will continue to change. It might not even get better. It will just change and grow along with you, along with other people's reaction to it as well. The last thing I want to touch on with this book is that Elizabeth Gilbert is very generous with her idea of humanity and its creative potential. She says that to say that someone is a creative person is redundant. If you are human, you are a creative person. Whether or not you choose to follow that path is up to you, but everybody is born with the ability to create, the ability to inspire, the ability to accept ideas and creativity in themselves, and whether or not they choose to actually pursue something full-time, part-time hobby, that is their own choice. And she also says you don't have to ask permission to live a creative life. And the idea of a creative life being somebody on Broadway or somebody who's photographing for Vogue isn't the be-all, end-all. You can live a very creative life if you are a banker. You can be very creative with your spreadsheets. You can be very creative as a lawyer, as a librarian. There are so many ways in everyday life, even in making your own coffee, where you can bring that inspiration, where you can bring that creative spirit into your life that isn't technically living a creative life. So we are all creative, and we don't need permission to elevate our own lives. Thank you so much for watching this book talk on Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. It is one of my favorite books, and a book I keep coming back to. I think I've read it about 3 times in the last year, just kind of going back over certain sections and reminding myself to be brave and to have a stopping point, and to also just keep going one step in front of the other, even when things get tough, even when it feels very uncomfortable, because usually that uncomfortability means that I'm about to grow and emerge as a better artist. I do videos every Wednesday with some shorts sprinkled in there, so make sure that you are subscribed, and I will see you very soon in the next one. Bye!